we're going to talk about making patch management work in your organization. So right off the hop, you have to kind of ask yourself some basic questions about patch management. The first is, how many apps do we actually have to patch? And it's kind of an interesting question, because if you think about it, the less apps that you have installed on machines or servers, the less work that you actually have to do. So it's probably within your interest to kind of do a software inventory before you even start talking about patching and figure out what exactly do we need for this organization to work properly. The next thing is to be on the lookout for opportunities to remove things like Adobe Flash, Microsoft Office, QuickTime, Shockwave, any software that's no longer needed, especially on servers. Those are pieces of software that are commonly exploited by malicious programs that either users download or potentially that the server ends up visiting by accident, sometimes by an admin that doesn't particularly know what they're doing. One of the key points to take away is that patching is very intrusive to users, especially if machines have to be rebooted. So the idea that we really want to do here is we really want to look for windows of opportunity to patch machines after hours. And in a lot of cases, if domain controllers aren't up and running and you have other activity taking place on your network, you're going to get complaints about users not being able to be logged in or not be able to get to their file shares. So it's really important to do a lot of this patching stuff after hours. It saves an awful lot of time and effort and inconvenience. One of the common problems with patching is workstations that are turned off. One of the more effective things I've heard about is also the ability to take away the ability to shut down the machine from the start menu. You can still shut down the machine by pushing the power button, but at least it isn't there and users aren't getting into the habit of shutting down the machines. So we talked a little bit about what we needed to consider when looking at patching and patch management solutions. Now we want to talk about some pre-flight checks that you have to do. So one of the most important things, especially in this day and age, is to not cause a problem with a patch. And one of the key takeaways is to monitor social media, either Microsoft or SANS, because they will tell you if other folks are trying out patches and they're causing problems. The next thing you need to do is find an appropriate machine to test. This doesn't have to be an elaborate test. One of the more important things is perhaps there's an admin person at the organization that has the basic business applications on her machine or his machine. What you want to do there is push those patches out to the machine just to make sure that the basic functionality is still there and nothing has been damaged or hurt. The other thing you want to do is prep your users. They should all know when patches are coming. This can also help you with the issue if they've turned off their machines, but more importantly, if they now see something strange going on their machine, they don't panic. It's really important to communicate about that. It also, as a IT admin, demonstrates your value to the organization in that they can actively see you taking steps to make sure that that organization is secure. And also, one other really important point, watch those .NET and Java updates. And the reason why I really focus on these ones as being fairly high risk is there's an awful lot of applications out there that rely on the current versions of .NET and the current versions of Java. If you change or install those new packages, there's quite possibly a situation that particular web-based application or even an in-house application may not work anymore. And that's why I can't stress enough that on the testing part is really to get some feedback. And if you know your application is a little bit sensitive to the Java version, you may want to be extremely careful when you put out a new Java version and be prepared for some support calls that might come out of that. And lastly, we have patching itself. Well, to be effective, one of the biggest problems is when users have left applications open. It's very difficult to patch an application if it's been left open. So, you know, for the vast majority of users that Control-Alt-Delete when they go home, locking their workstation, they might have their browsers open, they might have documents open, so that really is going to be a problem when you go to push out patches that are browser dependent like Flash, or if you're going to try and update Microsoft Office while Microsoft Office is running, it's really not going to like that. Another really important factor is to make sure you turn off the auto update features for your machines. because patching while you're patching is not a great idea and can actually break things. So it's really important to make a decision and say, we're going to use one patching tool, a comprehensive tool, when you're looking at doing patching effectively across both the operating system and third-party applications. Also, when you push your patches, understand that there might be bandwidth constraints. That's one of the key considerations for why you want to do it after hours instead of while users are trying to do their daily jobs, which may involve a lot of heavy network activity. So if you are looking at doing big patches like those .NET security updates or big releases of Java, you're definitely going to want to do that after hours, and you definitely want a tool that can do that job. One of the major issues with patches is making sure that they're effectively in place, and in a lot of times they demand a reboot. So it's really important to make sure that once you've established the fact that the patch has been installed, is to make sure that you're rebooting those workstations to in fact ensure that the patch is actually in place. It's a little bit disconcerting because you put in all that hard effort to try and secure the machine, but until that reboot takes place, consider that the patch hasn't been installed successfully. Now, I do realize some patches can go right in without forcing a reboot. I'm old school, so I tend to try and want to see that reboot to assure myself that everything has happened properly. And lastly, as part of your due diligence, you want to make sure that you verify with those patches. It's always great to make sure that you have that report afterwards to see if their patch didn't go in successfully, and you might have to get to that machine remotely using the Take Control feature and update that machine manually. Thanks for joining us for Trumpy Fridays, and you can subscribe by clicking in that box.